Hello, good night. It's AM, but this is an overnight taste challenge, and we have two 40% alcohol Canadian blended whiskeys. The first one is Canadian Limited, introduced in 1971. It is non-age stated, no age statement. Canadian whiskey with natural flavors. There's the beaver chewing on the wood, two lions wearing crowns, holding up a shield with fleur-de-lis and two crowns, obviously for King Charles and his wife, King of Canada. All right, anyway, $15.99 for that bottle. This runs about $25 for the regular size bottle. This is Canadian Club Small Batch Classic 12, age 12 years. Also got two lions holding up a crown with a maple leaf on it for King Charles III, King of Canada, of the House of Saxe-Coburg, Gotha, and Battenberg, which calls itself the House of Windsor. All right, anyway, thank you, John Anille, for this bottle. He gave me this bottle in 2018, and I've got that much left. Barely visible. For an overnight taste challenge. Make sure I got my labels correct. Had a shock yesterday evening. I was getting ready to lay down and watch baseball, which I did. Vanderbilt in Louisville. They call it the Bourbon Barrel Series, I think. And they were showing the players over there at the Vanderbilt players over there at Buffalo Trace. And they were bottling, they were letting the players practice bottling Blanton's, which is made at Buffalo Trace. Well, that's the end of this. No more, no more, no more. It is over. Bye-bye to Classic 12. All right. The Bourbon Barrel Series, Vanderbilt won. I got sleepy and I turned it off. You can see the Classic 12 is much darker. Is that because of aging? Or is that because of, I'm not sure, or is that because of adding coloring? It's probably the second option, adding coloring. Like I said, it's allowed in Canada. It's allowed in the USA to add coloring to whiskey. Not straight bourbon whiskey, not bottle and bond whiskey. But to blended whiskey, you can add coloring, caramel coloring. Canadian blended whiskey, Irish blended whiskey, Scotch blended whiskey, or single malt, they add coloring. Oftentimes, now they don't all allow coloring to be added. It depends on the brand. You know, some brands will tell you on the label, no color or flavors added, non-chill filtered, things like that. Oh, the rain is out there again, and I can't get over it. I mean, I don't know why that should shock me. It's always raining in Louisiana in the warm months. Got my grass cut yesterday, and here come the rain. I said, well, at least I got it cut and swept up and everything. Joe Cobb said, never heard of Canadian Limited in Ontario. Well, if I get this thing to focus, I'll be so happy. No? Sometimes they have Canadian whiskey only made for U.S. market or export, etc. Same thing with Scotch whiskey. real popular Scotch in the United States and South America is called, in Central America, is called Buchanan's Deluxe. Buchanan's Deluxe. But I've had Scottish people tell me, oh, I never heard of that stuff. I said, no, it's been on the market since 1884, but they just said they never heard of it. So it might have always been sent to the U.S. It probably was popular years ago in Scotland, but do they have American products that only get exported? Yes. There's certain Blantons. You know, we get the regular Blantons, but they have certain Blanton versions, if you look on the Blanton's website, that are only sent overseas, which is obviously irritating to Americans because they want to get their hands on it. But I guess they did that on purpose to make you go look for it, to add mystique to it or something like that. I don't get it, but it's rain. This has like a darker roast aroma, like a creme brulee, and that's making me think it's the classic 12 Canadian Club. I know y'all get this one, but introduced in 1984, had a much different bottle design back then, but now here 39 years later, it's got this updated squared off bottle, just like the Canadian Club 100% rye has that squared off bottle. Haven't bought that one yet, but that's definitely on my to buy list. This is a lot blander corn in the nose, like just standard corn, alcohol corn spirits, or like a caramel corn a little bit. So I think that this is the 12-year. But let's go with the taste to be sure. I want another repeat of last night's disaster. Not another repeat, meaning a repeat. A repeat is another. Sometimes I sound like I was working at the Office of Redundancy office. I don't know why these Canadian whiskeys taste like fiddle faddle to me. Or what's the competitor brand? Crunch and Munch and Fiddle Faddle. I don't know why, but they do. They do. You say, but don't you like Fiddle Faddle and Crunch and Munch? Yes, I don't buy them because you pay too much for that little enjoyment. But I do like them. And so if I'm drinking an alcoholic beverage, 40% whiskey that tastes like Fiddle Faddle or Crunch and Munch, I'm happy. But they got no peanuts in them. But sometimes they have nuttiness in the flavor. Anyhow. No, I mean, I was watching a video about the coronation, the big event in May 2023, and they were showing they had 41. Somebody was listing 37 countries, but then this video or some other knows the Papua New Guinea News Bureau or whatever they call it. News. They were saying that it was Papua New Guinea. That's an island country way out by the Pacific Ocean that Japan invaded in 1941, by the way. But they were saying that it was 40 Papua New Guinea and 40 other countries and British territories that participated in the military procession. So that makes 41. 40 plus one other. So there were 41 countries and or British territories. And they were showing a video and they were showing how they were practicing. They would practice hours to get it right. And then they gave each participant a medal, a special coin, like a medal. It was in a plastic container, keep it safe from getting scratched up because it was painted on both sides. A commemorative medal. You only got it if you participated in the procession. So I guess they'll keep that forever. And they had troops from India, the Australian Navy, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, like I said. Um, Trying to think of that territory. Montserrat. You ever heard of a country called Montserrat? It's a country that's this big. All right. I'm gonna say it's the Canadian Club Classic 12. Is it better? Yeah, it's a little bit better, but is it $14 better, which is what you would pay more if you got the regular bottles? I don't know about that. I don't know about $14 or $15 better. Yeah, I don't know why I needed. I didn't need labels on this. Look at my fingerprints all over. I didn't need labels on it. The thing is so dark, so much darker, so much darker. All right, let's look at the comments. So, what have we learned about Canadian Limited? Oh, and by the way, this is a work shirt. I wouldn't go out wearing this normally. You know, it's a work shirt. So if it gets stained or whatever, it's okay because it's for work, like working in a yard or on a vehicle. Like I used to have a principal in the high school. You need to move your vehicle, he would say on the intercom. I say vehicle. That's an interesting approach to language. Never heard of Canadian Limited in Ontario. Sometimes they have Canadian whiskey only made for the U.S. market and or export market, etc. I just think they have so much to sell, it does not matter. This is all from Joe Cobb. It is not logical, though, that you would think they would sell it locally. Why? Or why would it not be logical? It could sell anything they want. 100% rye is a nice Canadian Club bottle, one of my favorite. I also had the barley batch. I'm going to add periods to these sentences because he's putting like a bunch of independent clauses together with no periods. 100% rye is a nice Canadian Club bottle. Stop. One of my favorites. Stop. I also had the barley batch limited edition, comma, which is reasonable, comma, but hard to find since 2018 hyphen a limited edition. Okay, I rarely drink regular Canadian Club or 12-year. Stop. Far too sweet. The 100% rye or the special expressions are completely different drinks. I'd like to try those. Commonwealth is an interesting, and he meant to say, and interesting. Well, I make so many grammatical errors when I type, it's sad. Commonwealth is an interesting thing. It is. It used to be called the British Empire, but they slowly stopped using that name. And I was reading about the name Commonwealth. It goes way back to like the 1800s when they started using it, like saying we are a commonwealth of countries. Because what they decided to do, they didn't want a repeat of 1775. So as the countries developed more independently, you know what I'm saying, like a child growing up, they say, well, they could have their own self-government. So they started to create these self-governing colonies. Canada was the first one, 1867. They said, well, you could have your own self-government. After all, you've been around for as long as the United States, basically. So then they did that with Newfoundland, which later joined Canada as a province, but it was its own country at one time. And then they added Australia. They created that country out of different states, the Commonwealth of Australia. Then New Zealand did the same. Then South Africa, which was a problematic one. That one didn't work out so well, but because you had two opposing, kind of like France and the French and the British in Canada, they didn't like each other, but in South Africa it was much more hostile because of a much more dirty war there. But then they created the Union of South Africa. So they started using the term Commonwealth because they were they were saying it was not really an empire, because the empire sort of implies that you're controlling all these other countries without their permission. But they said, but it's changing. We're talking about over 100 years ago. It's changing into a voluntary association, like Ireland. That's right. They created the Irish Free State, but they didn't really ever want to be part of it. So they finally cut all their ties with the British King in 1949 and became the Republic of Ireland. And they left the Commonwealth and said, we don't want to be in it. That's an association we don't want to associate with. We're Irish. We don't like British people, even though they're British people. You know, they're part of the British Isles, but they have a bad history with them going back to King Henry VIII. So, and even worse, Oliver Cromwell. So that was a divorce, and not an amicable divorce. But then India and Pakistan and Bangladesh and all of them, they're all still members of the Commonwealth with their own presidents. They're Commonwealth republics. And they were showing the interview with this Bangladeshi soldier, and he was like, "Oh, we're so." What was he saying? What was he saying? We have such great relationships with Great Britain, with the United Kingdom, or whatever term he used. And he was like, "And our history goes back so far, and all of this." He says it's only once in your life probably you get to be in a coronation procession as a soldier, and so there you go. No United States troops were involved in that, by the way, and the president didn't go. It's a tradition that the U.S. president doesn't go to the coronation because it's like, we don't like you because we had a revolution, the American Revolution, even though we run behind you and we collaborate with you in every foreign conflict affair that we could think of getting involved in. So it's like, why'd you even break away if you're just going to basically mimic everything they do? But that's another story. All right, back to Canadian whiskey. Yeah, I'm usually a bit better. Just woke up excited to catch a stream. Oh, okay. Well, that's all right. Like I said, don't feel bad because I'm forever making grammatical errors. What was the original reason that Britain allied with or invaded India? Oh, it's too complicated to cover in this short video. They didn't ever say, let's go invade India. It wasn't like that. India was a very disorganized conglomeration of states who were constantly fighting with each other. India was made up of all different kind of ethnic groups and languages and religions, and it was sort of like a jigsaw puzzle. They had an emperor, the Mughal emperor, but his power was getting weaker he was declining every year. So by the time the British showed up, he was pretty much already at the end of the road on his power. And it was really British merchants, Portuguese first. The Portuguese showed up, and then the French and the British, and they start trading with these little states, like I said, were constantly fighting with each other. And they made trade agreements, say, oh, we could trade here and you could trade there, and we have this exclusive trading area and so forth like that. And then they had this British company, like a Walmart type of thing. And they said, well, we need protection for our people because this country is like really out of control with violence and disorganization and things like that. You never know what was going to break out. So they had their own army, or what you call a security service. The East India Company had their own security service. It wasn't the British Army. It was British people, but it was their own private army, like security guards, but it was an actual army. And and that's how that developed. And then slowly, the British government, because of certain things that happened, slowly took control of the place. By 1858, they had total control of it as a colony until 1947, when they let it become like Canada, self-governing. But then in 1950, India became a republic with its own president. So there it is in 2 minutes. All right. But to show you about the disorganization and the chaos, remember, Pakistan and Bangladesh were also part of India, but they broke away in 1947 because they just could not get along with the other groups. So diversity you say diversity makes us strong. Diversity brings us together, because that's what they say on TV all the time. But let's see how that, it didn't work out in India, did it? Okay, made them weaker and smaller. Did diversity keep Yugoslavia together? Okay, but anyway, that's another story for another day. Here comes the heavy rain. Well, y'all take care now. The winner, there's no winner here. You can make an argument for both of these products, discussing the value, the $15 for the handle, $15.99 for the handle. So you could say, yeah, well, Canadian Limited has some approachability and some things you want to consider, and it's a good deal. I agree with that. And the Classic 12, which I told you is all gone. You could make a strong argument for its worth, its value in a sense. So yeah, no losers, no winners, but yes, I'm the winner because I was able to tell them apart, I guess. So now we're going on in a few days or even tomorrow with a new Canadian whiskey, which to me is going to wipe out all the rest. Be no chance that they can compete. But then I've been known to be wrong on those kind of things. So y'all take care now.